job we call show business, I've been lucky enough to meet some wonderful people. And this particular person I really enjoy becoming friends with because, I often say this, that it's the people normally around the very famous people that have the best stories. Simply because, they're literally taking it all in. Say, for instance, they don't have the pressure of having to do the interview, or if the performer's there, there's that sort of sense of excitement. Everybody does exactly what the performer wants, the star, the celebrity, the sort of thing. Now, this particular man, he is literally just a font of wonderful knowledge. One of those people that when you sit down with him, you realise he's met everybody, all thanks to the wonderful talent of his brilliant and late father, Nelson Riddle. And Chris Riddle shared this wonderful story with me about, quite a few superstars, but I wanted to share it with you because it just shows a different side to the person that literally is the celebrity public image. As ever, let me explain. Lovely to see you today, and as ever, thank you for taking the time out. Now, a wave, sorry, I know I'm slacking, aren't I? Lovely to have your company. I mentioned it on a previous video as well. If you have the opportunity, do check out the wonderful Joe Longthorne. Sadly, the anniversary of his passing. And when you think about it, you're just so lucky to have met these people, sat down with them and had a lot of fun and joking and all that sort of stuff. And you can't quite believe they're gone, but they do live on in their wonderful music that they left behind. And up in Blackpool on the North Pier, they named the theatre after him, one of the very special places that he loved to perform in. And thousands of people saw him over so many years. Wonderful, wonderful man. Now, this man also really created, iconic moments. Literally, we're talking, of course, about the original Robin Hood, all thanks to Warner Brothers and Jack Warner. Yes, Errol Flynn. Now, Errol Flynn was just one of my type of people, really. He took life literally by the scruff of the neck and made sure he enjoyed it. Some say to his own detriment, leaving us way too early. Good looking, debonair, full of confidence, and of course, a private life that would rock any tabloid even today. But he battled on gamely and of course had a lot of adventures along the way. Even the very formidable, according to Chris Riddle, Bette Davis fell for his charms, and literally he could do no wrong playing opposite her, whereas other people, shall we say, were quite thorny, Now, as I say, I sat down with Chris Riddle, whose father was the brilliant musician that was, of course, Nelson Riddle. Mainly people know him for being the musician behind, the brilliant musical director, should I say, behind the equally talented Frank Sinatra. But he was so much more. He did so many things, didn't he? So many theme tunes, stuff like that. Chris was one of these people, as I say, we developed a good friendship. Let's not forget, he spent a lot of time in London when he was younger, and he told me how he would come over on the Queen Mary and go to school here. Can you imagine travelling first class on the Queen Mary and going to school? I think it was somewhere in Marylebone. Now, what was interesting about this particular story is another icon that we spoke about was none other than the beautifully voiced and very nice man, Nat King Cole. Now, Nat King Cole, of course, didn't start out as a singer, started out as a jazz pianist, but what a voice, what a performer, and of course, what a talent. Now, here's where it gets really interesting because you see, Nat King Cole had appeared in quite a few films up until this particular point. But he didn't really and couldn't really get too far simply because at different times, different spades, as it were, in that particular era. Even his much highly rated radio show, backed by NBC, couldn't get a national sponsor. That's how times and things were different then. But that didn't stop Nat's talent. He had a plethora of wonderful hits. But in 1957, he was asked to provide the theme songs for a brand new movie starring Errol Flynn called Istanbul. And of course, Errol just took the job purely to pay off the taxman. $150,000 by the flat fee. Could have earned more if he'd have taken a percentage, but he took the flat fee, according to Chris. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting because he insisted that, Nat King Cole said, is there any chance of a part rather than just providing the theme tune? Errol swept into action and made sure that his friend, Nat King Cole, secured a part of Danny, one of the biggest parts that he'd had in his career to that point to date. And it just goes to show, you see, how different people felt differently even back then. They just got on. Errol admired Nat's talent and his life. Couldn't do it himself, but as he said, you just have to admire somebody who can take to the stage and perform so beautifully. As we all know, sadly, Nat King Cole left us way too early. And apparently, according to Chris, he was riddled, dare I say, using that expression, with nerves and and he smoked so much, But once he was on stage, he was sort of elegance and calm itself. Now, according to Chris and according to Tony Bennett, who also shared this story, a lot of the studio bosses at the time, Universal International, did not want him to be in a major role, but Errol insisted, and the film became a big box office success, and of course Errol promised to work with him again at some point. Sadly, within 2 years, we'd lost Errol Flynn, and of course in 1965 we sadly lost Nat King Cole. But both have left a wonderful legacy behind. And the point of this story just goes to prove that whatever problems we have in the world, we've had them for years. It's all about individuals standing up for each other. And if you've got the power, being able to turn things into the direction that that person is looking for. Errol Flynn was certainly one of those. Nat King Cole certainly broke a lot of barriers. And of course, the sublime talent of Tony Bennett. Let's not forget also the wonderful Joe Longthorne. I hope you don't mind me reminiscing on these stories. It's always lovely to share. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.